And yeah, he'll eventually lose favor with Hitler because of this. He was also very terrible at managing the Luftwaffe's development. He often vetoed excellent designs for heavy bombers, and he built short range. He basically built a glorified short range air force and used it as a
It
ground support tool.
ultimately it was see the Luftwaffe ultimately was a tactical air force. It had no strategic element to
Yeah,
it.
it very much was limited because of that. They really lacked the heavy bombing capabilities, which makes
And
no
he
sense.
really kind of I think he also followed Hitler's divide and rule policy.
Mm,
So his Erhard Milch and another chief commander that he appointed, even though Milch was like following Goring's predecessor in Walter Weber in trying to develop a sophisticated strategic air force, Goring and I really can't recall the name at the moment of this air marshal, they get seduced by the idea of dive bombing.
yeah.
Why? Just because it just looks good.
Mhm.
That's it.
And this comes to the point
And
where he didn't understand logistics at all. So you had brought up the issue where he would tether his escorts to the bombers. It actually is not fuel efficient. And so a country that's already facing issues because they don't have oil reserves at all is losing more fuel than they have to. And while this looked great, during the invasion of Poland and France, for example, now they're going greater distances and stuff, and he's completely mismanaging everything. And again, as far as logistics are concerned, or even ground logistics, he has just no idea what he's doing. So, game and point is during the Stalingrad debacle, he thought that he could lift all of those tons to, you know, to Paulus over there in Stalingrad, and no, like I don't know, could have anybody in the room looked at him with a straight face and be like, yeah, sure we can. Like, absolutely not. It never made sense. The math was completely off on
uh,
that.
the actually the Flieger commanders did, but if he does, he just berated them and just said, "I'm the right marshal. I can do whatever." Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he's not a leader of men.
No, no.
I remember reading this when you have Husky, and by now, when the British have and Americans have established their fighter bases in their sections of Malta and are now raining havoc over southern Italy. And by now, we've reached a stage where Allied fighters are superior in technology as well to the Germans. And the only thing he does is just insults all the pilots, crews, Fliegerkorps commanders, demanding their resignation or transfer to the Eastern Front as punishment. Even though these are like guys who've been fighting continuously month after month. I think there's some certain Luftwaffe pilots who were pretty much in active combat from Poland in September 1939 till their deaths on the Eastern Front in late 1942, mid 1943. Maybe in between, you can just put 1 or 2 weeks of leave. That's it.
Yep. And to summarize his entire career, I would say he was the worst yes man maybe amongst the Nazis, and there's a lot of yes men, by the way. He just kept telling Hitler exactly what he wanted to hear, and he had no idea how to back it up. I'll just add, we already talked about the Battle of Britain, the faults at Malta. That he should have seen what happened at Malta and understood like what was going to happen at Britain. He couldn't supply Paulus at Stalingrad. He stated the Allies would never bomb Berlin. Of course they did. And one last kind of funny note, he approved the process for the Me-262 jet fighter, which, Hitler definitely would have loved. And Hitler asked him if the plane would be able to carry two 150-pound, kilogram bombs, which was a fairly modest, bomb load for back then. And Goring, without even understanding or knowing the figures, just like said, yeah, sure. And then like the people who were making the aircraft, like, no, it's not possible. So yeah, Goring was an idiot. Yeah.
Just a lot of designs that he allegedly approved, right? So designing a fighter is a long process. It takes years
Yeah.
from the concept to even a
Well,
working prototype.
in this
And
specific case, he demanded that the guys making the aircraft had to meet what he had said. and it delayed the project by 6 months because he wouldn't allow them to create the proper aircraft until it could carry that load. So, anyways, yeah, he's an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like one of the some medium bomber that he put, they had the idea that instead of how you see on the RAF Lancasters or the American fortresses, where you have two radial engines on each wing side by side, you put it as like a sandwich, one on top of the other over the wing. And he approved the design, and when the prototype comes, he says, didn't anybody try to consider the fact that, now engine maintenance is a big pain? But yeah, as I said, he was a yes man, as you said, sorry, Craig. He's a
Yeah.
yes man. He also liked to listen to yes men of his staff and was incapable of assessing any strategic information. I mean, I'd go as far as to say this. I think Hitler could assess strategic information better than Göring.
There you go. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yes, Goring was an easy pick, by the way. Of all the people on the list, Goring is very easy to pick. He definitely was the
Yeah,
worst, yeah. But I guess I'll leave it to you for the other Germans.
yep. We just have one, and surprise, surprise, I'll just call it out. It's not Gesselring, even though he's probably the most famous Luftwaffe commander.
Yeah, I would say so.
But so those who play Call of Duty Zombies, they are gonna like his name,
That
General Richthofen.
was a good call out.
Well, to be fair, that's also the first time I heard that name, General Richthofen, and my friend's obsession says his obsession with the golden lever. He keeps sending me those vids about zombies. But uh, General Wolfram von Richthofen was probably the best aerial commander in any regards for the Germans. So this guy was an aviator true and true, but unlike Göring, he actually understood the operational and strategic level of war. And even though he did not get his way in trying to get a strategic air force, because if Walter Weaver did exist and did not die before the war, I think the Luftwaffe could have been a far more potent machine. But this guy, during the Spanish Civil War, where he worked with the Condor Legion, he perfected air-ground cooperation and communication first. He created liaison officers so that the Luftwaffe could communicate effectively with the army. And this set the doctrine that Germany would employ in Poland, the Low Countries, Scandinavia, and France. And he did also know to use dive bomb as well and level bombing and properly dispersed his men. For example, the Luftwaffe doctrine before the start of World War II was actually to use a lot of men, as in the ground personnel, in anti-flak roles. He actually minimized that. He actually sent them to forward artillery positions to at least be a bit more attacking, which, if you really ask me, I think that was a good decision. Now, during the invasion of Poland, even with meager supplies, he is still able to really utilizes men, and he starts learning to ration his fuel quite early. So even though he gets cut down and hampered by supplies that his Fliegerkorps cannot commit more than one sortie a day, he makes it count. And then during the Phony War, he just kind of like, just makes a big show and kind of trains his men. But he's also the guy that in the Battle of France at the Low Countries, in the dashes across the Deal River, north of Sedan, Battle of he is literally breaking up divisional attacks with his Fliegerkorps. He's dropping them because he tries to keep a front line about 60 kilometers ahead of the troops so that reconnaissance are spotting them, and then he's able to call in reinforcements as needed. He also believed that he needs air bases right at the front lines so that the distance is minimized for his forces to support, and it works. He even beats back Charles de Gaulle's what do you call